What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gellner, and I want to say thank you for joining us today. On today's show, we have on Jim Maciejewski, Athletic Director and Head Baseball Coach at Mauldin High School in South Carolina. Maj has been the head baseball coach at Mauldin since 2009, so we go over what building the culture over the last decade has looked like. We discuss how we can leverage social media as a celebration tool, but also how to use it to keep alumni connected, and we dive deep into some really cool ideas on how to get parents involved in a program. You're going to love this episode, and here is Jim Maciejewski. Maj, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Jonathan. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So you are the athletic director and head baseball coach at Mauldin High School, and that's quite a role in itself, and I'm sure that we'll get to dig in on lots of different challenges that you've gotten the opportunity to deal with and I'm sure do well with. But for our listeners who want to get to know how you got there, would you mind letting them get to know you a little bit better by giving us a short snapshot of why you decided to get into coaching, and then how you got to Mauldin?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, suburb called Lancaster. Played for high school football for Len Jankowitz. And by the time we moved into that town, my dream was to play Friday night football and step on Foyle Clean Field and play for him. So I guess I would have to credit, my wanting to get into coaching, due to Coach Jank. And he's a legendary football coach up there in Buffalo, and he just set me on that path of wanting to do what he did. He was our athletic director as well. At the time, amazing guy, and he was drafted to play professional baseball and professional football. So he kind of gave me the itch to want to coach at an early age in high school. But, after leaving Lancaster High School, I played at Monroe Community College for 2 years for Skip Bailey, who was unbelievable. Went on to play 2 years at USC Upstate for Matt Fincher, and was fortunate enough to be an assistant coach for him for a year. And then Ben Waddle at Dorman, had my car packed, ready to go after graduation, and there was a PE job open. And actually, Coach Reams, who's with us right now here at Mauldin, I was leaving Dorman at the time. So it was the perfect storm. He gave me my first opportunity to be an assistant coach. Spent 4 amazing years with him at Dorman. And then this job opened up in 2009, and I've been here 11 years. So, it's been a very, enjoyable, tough, rewarding journey getting here to Mauldin High School.
I love that. And when did you get the athletic director job? Was that last year?
Yeah, I was named end of last February. So right at the beginning of Corona, COVID is when I was named, and the rest is history, if you will.
Oh wow! So you got thrown into basically baptism by fire right? Just this last couple of months.
Yeah, it's been tough. Just the logistics of everything, of following the guidelines, district protocols, state protocols, scheduling, all that stuff has been a challenge, but it's really, really rewarding, especially this past football season, getting to see those guys play their season and being able to stand in the end zone on a Friday night, was really, really fun. We're about to get cranked up with our first home basketball game here on Tuesday. We have a really good couple basketball programs here on campus, so we're excited to get going.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say that I'm sure it is really good to be back and seeing different sports being played, and even I know it's how tough it is, and I can't imagine what your day-to-day looks like. But I want to talk a little bit about whenever you started the job at Mauldin in 2009. And so I'm always curious, because people talk about like what to be prepared for in an interview process, and how to make sure that your coaching journal or pamphlet or coach's handbook is ready to go, and how to answer all of these questions, but they don't really tell you what to do on day one. And so can you kind of walk through what that vision was like whenever you started what you wanted to truly like do first, or like your first couple of different things that you wanted to check off the list. And then, looking back, what was the most critical thing that you did?
Well, the initial vision, at 26 years old was entirely wrong. I was spoiled as an assistant at Dorman. Our first year, we played for a state championship, and in my mind, the way I thought, we were just going to do that every single year. And the history and tradition of this baseball program, far exceeded my time here at Mauldin beginning in 2009. The countless number of players that have come through here, coaches. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I took entirely the wrong approach as a young head coach. What was in it to win? It wasn't about developing the kids, developing them into individuals, young men. It was about the bottom line of how many baseball games we can win, and it was 100% incorrect. It was wrong. And looking back, I was sitting at a wedding 6 years ago of one of our former players, the first wedding I'd ever been invited to of a former player. And we're sitting around a table with a couple of other of our boys, and naturally the stories start flowing. Coach, remember you did this? Coach, remember you said this? Coach, and I wanted to crawl under the table. And it was right at the time. I think my daughter might have been 3 or 4 weeks old at the time. It was my wife and I's first outing, outside the house with a newborn. And it really put things into perspective of what this thing is all about. We going into it, we're not trying to force relationships. We're not trying to force kids into, having that close knit relationship with us. To me, it's all predicated upon the game. It's predicated upon teaching them what hard work is. It all goes back to trying to be the best we can on a daily basis, and those relationships built from there. So I would say we were talking a couple of days ago with a couple of our guys that are now at Clemson before an inter squad, and we were talking about everything. And we have a grad transfer at Clemson, and we have a true freshman, and Tio's kind of in the middle. And talking to Rashesh and Eddie, Rashesh knows pre-Olivia, and Eddie knows post-Olivia. So those vast contrasts of coaches of who I was is immense. And like I said, going into this thing 11 years ago, the approach was way off and wasn't filled with perspective of making the experience of the kids the biggest priority. So I think that's some way where I've learned and I've grown over the last 11 years.
I love that. And how long into the job did it take you to make that transformation?
4 years, a long 4 years. And my first year, we made the playoffs for the first time in 2 years. We had a terrible second year. We were inexperienced at a lot of spots. And, my third and fourth year, we finished in the top four. We had a couple of draft picks, doing some really, really good things. And it was because we were ultra talented. And, I'm not really close with a lot of those guys. There's some of them that I talk to on a regular basis. And that's my biggest regret is those couple of special teams. 3 out of the first 4 years were really special. And, when a coach says the most proud moment is when you see one of your boys get married. They call you when they have their first child, whatever that may be, the death of a parent, they're calling you to let you know, those moments with those groups are few and far between. And, nothing more than fault of myself. And that's something I really, really regret.
I think that you're not alone in that. I think that, a lot of us, we think the same things, and those of us who haven't made that transformation yet, then I think hopefully that you are going to inspire some change in them. And so, one other thing that I think is really interesting within programs is what standards that they have, or you could call them rules, or you could, call them guidelines. But, what are the things that are important for you and Mauldin to be able to do to be a successful program on and off the field?
Yeah, absolutely. We have three. We have be the best son you can be to your parents. The second one is be the best student you can be in the classroom. And the third is be the best athlete you can be in the weight room and on the baseball field. And I think all three of those are all encompassing with everything we're asking our kids to do. On a daily basis, can they truly say, and it's a challenge now with where we are within our district academically. Our kids are only on campus 2 days a week, and they're e-learning and doing virtual classes those other two. So it's really, really hard, I think, for them right now to sit there and be able to say, I gave my best today when I was e-learning and in my virtual classes. Like, I got up on time. I have a routine. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do to be the best student. The son one, being the best son they can be to their parents. I mean, there's so many bullet points that could fall underneath those rules, that standard, that expectation. And as they say, it takes a village, and hopefully we're doing a pretty good job with helping parents, help raise their sons. I know with two kids now, for me, it does. It's a difficult thing, raising children, especially now in the pandemic that we're going through. But the third one, with being the best athlete they can be, we're asking them, like I said, on a daily basis, to be able to look themselves in the mirror. Did they give their absolute best in the weight room and in training that day? Did they do the things they were expected to do at a high level, when their coaches weren't watching? And again, that's a deviation from in transformation over the course of 11 years of somebody that had 3-4 pages of rules at the beginning. If they didn't step with their right foot at the right time, there's a consequence, and it handcuffs you, backs you in a corner, and the kids don't have any freedom or their individuality, and all they're doing is trying not to break rules, as opposed to just doing what you're asking them to do, which is be the best they can be on a daily basis.
So what do those conversations look like? Let's say that you have player X that shows up late, which would constitute probably all three. And I think that that's something that most coaches look to, and they want their players to be on time, which is a life skill. So let's say that I'm player X and I show up, 5 minutes late to weights. What does that conversation look like between us?
Well, to start, the conversation happens the next day, because if we have kids that show up late to do the weight room or training, we just send them right home. We don't really have, knock on wood, we don't really have time issues, and it's something we hammer into them from day one. We're going to be early, and when we get early, when we're there early, it's an opportunity for us to steal some reps, have some conversations with my teammates, hang out, build some relationships. But that conversation the next day it's a pretty simple one. We have a saying around here that Coach Reams coined several years ago. And we say that's Mauldin. Everything we want to be able to, we do, whether, again, it's academically, it's as a person, it's in the weight room, it's on the field. We want to be able to say at the end of the day, that was Mauldin. The way we play, the way we conduct ourselves in the hallway, when we're out doing community service, when they're out by themselves, we're constantly going back to that question and that statement. That's Mauldin. Is it Mauldin to be 5 minutes late to the weight room? Is it Mauldin to not turn in your assignments on time when they're supposed to be in? Is it Mauldin to not be engaged in the game? To make mental mistakes. So everything, all the discussions we have really go back to that statement of that's Mauldin.
Oh, that's awesome. I've seen you use that a couple of times on social media, and I thought that was really, really catchy. And, obviously you do a great job, and that's kind of how we've connected, just because I think the ABCA chats a couple of years ago with Jeremy Sheetinger, whenever he was running stuff, and I was like, who is this Maciejewski guy who just is killing everybody with all of these cool graphics? And so, We've talked a couple of times since, and I've since been following up on you for sure, and have had you as a guest, a potential guest on the show for a long time. And so I'm really excited again to get to interview you and learn from you today. And so you talk about That's Mauldin a lot, and you have done a great job from the outside looking in of building the culture there, but also leveraging social media to be able to do that. And so let's talk about the latter point a little bit. How have you been able to, and what's your process been like of using social media as a way to build the culture within your program? And then we'll dig into kind of the nuts and bolts of what it looks like, in person.
Well, the social media aspect of it, I don't know. I'm on Twitter more than any grown man should, to be honest with you. And, it's just a way to kind of celebrate what our kids are doing and showing a sense of pride within our program. I'm proud as anybody that I get to wear, this jersey and this logo, and I get to call it my job. Like I get to go to work and come to school, and be a part of one of the most, historic baseball programs in the state of South Carolina. And I'm proud of that fact. And I want to celebrate that. We have unbelievable kids, and I want the world to know what they're doing, because we're really, really proud of them. Wins and losses aside, we have tremendous kids. We have awesome coaches. We have a great school. We have a great, leadership within it. And, I just want to go ahead and celebrate that. Essentially is kind of where it started. That's kind of where that was born, was just that. Again, wanting to celebrate what we're doing. And we're really proud of the fact of what we have, and hopefully the tradition we're continuing on, and those guys from the past can look and see what we're doing and be proud of it.
Oh, for sure. So you also, I think that another way that social media has helped is, you just mentioned it, is that's that connection piece between the alumni and then the current group to kind of see what they're doing. Because if you don't look on Twitter, like this weekend, I was looking at, Union was in the semifinal, so I was on looking to see if, how they were doing, and unfortunately they lost. But at the same time, that was my only way to be able to connect with that group that's in there right now, because I'm not in it every single day. And maybe I don't have, if I'm a former player, I don't have friends in the group anymore, but you still want to look and see how they're doing. And kids, they're not going to look at a newspaper the next day. So have you found that that's a pretty easy step to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think it doesn't take much time. If you plan ahead a little bit and spend a little bit of time, some of the game promos we do, and weekly schedules, if you create a template early, and it doesn't take much the week before to just kind of fill it out, save it. With TweetDeck and everything going on, like, you can schedule those things to go out. It's not terribly difficult, but again, our alumni, and I've learned this from the AD perspective now, is that's a lot how our alumni and parents get most of their communication through us, is through the social media part, the Twitter, the Facebook, Instagram. And it's funny how the different factions, age groups of people are on the different things. So, I'm constantly trying to update as many things and stay current with what's out there, because a lot of people, would rather flip through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to see an update or a game score or some important announcement, as opposed to, checking email or Remind or GroupMe or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of different ways to celebrate what you're doing, keep alumni involved, make important announcements, things like that. So I think it's imperative for any coach to try to figure out a way to do that. And it's, there's obviously Adobe, Illustrator, and Power, everything you can do. There's cheap ways to stay current and keep the public and the community updated with what's going on within everybody's program.
No doubt. And hashtag That's Mauldin, right?
Hashtag That's Mauldin, absolutely.
I love that. So talk about, we talk about culture as this just elusive thing. And basically it comes down to the standards you set and the environment that the kids are going into every single day, which, I think the belief, behavior, and experience that they're going into. But, we speak on culture a lot, and it's really kind of hard to bottle it up and explain exactly what it is. But just in your best way of trying to set that example of every single day, what they're going to look like in the environment that they're going to come into, what are the things that are really important to you? You mentioned that your standards, so you want them to be the best son, the best student, the best athlete, on the field and in the weight room. But how do you foster that environment on a daily basis?
I guess the biggest thing is we try to create and foster the relationships with our middle school kids right off the bat. Before coronavirus hit us this summer, it was 2 summers ago. Was the first time we had every middle school baseball player who was zoned for us in the weight room with us for 8 weeks over the course of the summer.
That's awesome.
We had different training sessions for them in the evening time. So they were with our coaching staff, some of our players, all summer, and I think that's where it starts. We're the only district in the state that has middle school baseball, so we don't get our kids on campus within Mauldin baseball until the fall of their freshman year. So it took me 9 years to kind of have the courage and be brave enough to have seventh and eighth graders in our weight room and doing everything we do on a daily basis throughout the course of the summer. And then they become accustomed to not only, with what we aspire to be, our standards, our expectations, our training philosophies, things like that. But they just get comfortable coming on campus. They know where the weight room is. They know where the locker room is. They have a sense of comfort for when they do step on campus as a freshman. They can be at peace and say, I've done this for 2 years. I'm not overwhelmed. But that's been a huge aspect for us. And unfortunately, this past summer we couldn't do any of it. So I feel like we're a little behind, and we're trying to make up with that lost time where we can. But the second thing is that I think is really good that, again, it's a struggle for us to do it now because of the number of kids on campus and things like that, which we're trying to get creative with the Zoom calls and group me and things like that. And the little time we do have with our kids is what we started, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, Mavs U, where once a week, every Monday afternoon throughout the course of the year, they're in season, out of season, we have lessons for the kids. And, we spend time with them in the classroom setting, trying to teach them a little bit character development, leadership skills, life skills, baseball, bunt coverages, cuts and relays, our offensive and defensive philosophies. And that's something that I really, really love and have enjoyed building and cultivating. Tyler Gillum, a number of years ago, tweeted something about what they do over over in Arizona. And he was more than accommodating with taking me through what they did and helping me create an idea or vision of what we wanted to do here. And over the course of time, it's just become our own. And, it might be based off an article I've seen or, something I've read where it might hit to the core of what we're dealing with within our program during that time, that we veer off course of what curriculum we have built, and we just go with it. We've done group presentations within that time. We've had assistant coaches do some presentations. We've had group work. We've had strictly lecture. Like we've done it every which way you can imagine. We brought guest speakers in, not only baseball, but different areas of sport, of athletics, in the business community here in Mauldin. So we've tried to make that a staple within our program. It's one of those non-negotiable things that we're going to do every single year, as long as I'm the head coach here. And I think it's been really beneficial.
Oh, that's wonderful. So while we're on it, I was going to save this question for later, but since we're talking about the pandemic and we've hit on it a couple of different times, and whether you're listening in December or whether you're listening 10 years from now, we're currently going through the COVID pandemic, and so it's kind of thrown a wrench into everything that we have done in the past. But what's something that you will continue to do that you have had to change because of COVID that you're going to continue to do in the future?
That's easy. That's my appreciation for every day I get to be with our kids. Here I am getting choked up over here. Like watching those kids walk off a floor field last March was hard, tough. And as you can tell, I'm still not over it because that senior group was special. And I tell these kids every day, I'm with them Monday, Wednesday, or the Tuesday, Thursday group, like they're the best part of my day. And I appreciate them. I love them. And, it's just my wife, if she's listening to this, she's going to be rolling on the floor because I am the crier of the of the family. But
I love it.
It's just it's the daily appreciation. No matter how good it's going, how bad it's going, it's being around those kids, it's being around our coaches, and it's something like I said. I tell them every day they're the best part of my day. And I didn't always think like that in the past, but after seeing our seniors last year and have their final year ripped from them was just tough. So just a daily appreciation for getting to do what I do is the biggest thing.
I love that, and thank you for sharing. I know that's there's a lot of coaches nodding their heads right now and thinking the exact same thing, and man, it's for sure. But I do kind of want to switch gears a little bit, and so let's we were talking about the culture, and I think that with every level that you move up or go down, whether it's high school, college, or professional, you have these different challenges to face, and the one that is constantly brought up with high schools is parents. How do you deal with parents? Because if you don't do the right thing, then they're going to get you fired or whatever. And so how do you, I don't want to say deal because, you could use and insert different words or one or for another, but how do you incorporate them? We could use that one. That sounds better. How do we incorporate them into the program to where it's like, we're trying to help them become young men, but after having a kid and you have a couple of kids, you still want to be a part of it. But how do you, get parents on board to what you guys are doing, and how do you make them a part of your program with some safe distance, I guess you could say?
Absolutely. I think the right, maybe even for parents, how do you get them to take ownership of the program? I think that's a word that can be used with that idea.
I like that.
I was, like I said, at the beginning of my coaching career, made a lot of mistakes, and one of the biggest mistakes I made was trying to keep distance between myself and our parents. I didn't want them to come to practice. I really, and this is bad to say, like I didn't really have used to talk to them, other than if it was a fundraising opportunity or whatever it was, and that was completely wrong. Like we need our parents to be successful, and I think any coach listening to this can probably correlate the success of a season based off the quality of parent, the quality relationships between the coaching staff and the parents. I think that's something we all could take a deep dive into and kind of see. I mean, there's no way to quantitatively evaluate, parental involvement, whether it's positive or negative, but the better years we have with the relationships with parents, the better years we've had on the field. So, one of the things that we've talked about in our Necton group, and we got some coaches in there that do an amazing job with their parents. And I think it was Adam Mosley from Hoover was, we got to create positive rumors, for our coaching staff with what we have going on amongst the parents. And the only way we can do that is to be open and transparent with them. Try to involve them as much as we can. Whether it's fundraising, it's field work days. One of the things we started a couple years ago too was inviting our parents on picture day to have pictures taken with their son, and the moms get a jersey, and they take pictures in front of the scoreboard. And it's just a way. Is it a neat keepsake for every kid in our program? Absolutely. But again, it's just one of those ways to have a little bit of conversation. Let them see us when our wives are around, when our kids are around, and it might change their perspective a little bit of us as coaches, of things that might have gone on, and that's one of the things we started, like I said, a couple years ago that have been huge. Helping them banquets. things like that. Just having them involved in as many different creative ways as possible, I think are big. If camps, I like to have some parents involved with helping us organize camps, whereas before it was I'll just do it. But now I try to seek out ways for the parents to help with the organization of it, to help with registration, to help with handing out T-shirts, to just help, just to get them inside the facility and be around. And again, see us in a different light as opposed to Tuesday and Friday nights when the lights are on and it's a huge region game. I think that's huge.
No, for sure. It's as you were mentioning all of these different things, I was just thinking back to the analogy of how easy is it to be a social media keyboard warrior versus whenever you actually get to know somebody, Right. And so I think that's really cool. I didn't know about the picture day, and I think that's a really neat idea to be able to do that. And because before having a son, I had, I wouldn't have thought about that or how special that would be. But now, like, getting to see him grow up and me wanting to be a part of his life, even though he's 2, I could definitely see how that would definitely be a cool thing. Whenever he's 30 or 40 years old, we still had that. So
right.
that's really, really neat. And so
one thing I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting, JG. One of the things that just hit me, we've done in the past too. Again, we didn't get to do last year. So some teams professionally, and I stole this. Obviously, we talked about it earlier today. A huge Buffalo sports fan. And what the Sabres do, the hockey team up there, they have a dad's trip. So when they have maybe like a 3 or 4 game road trip out to the West Coast, they take the dads with them, and the dads stay in the hotel. The dads go to practice. The dads go to dinner. Really, really cool experience for those guys. So we decided a couple years ago we were going to have a dad's trip of our own. So we were playing a Saturday afternoon game downtown at Fluor Field. So I had the kids. I had an invitation created. The kids signed it. We had a formal envelope. We invited that for a Dad's Day, and what we had was we had them come to BP. They were hanging out on the field. They were hanging around the cage. We gave them all a hat, which you thought what would have been $1 million. They rode the bus with us to the ballpark, and we had a connection. One of our former players' fathers had a connection with the GM of the Drive, and they had this sitting area down the right field line called the dugout, where you can get catered food in there, catered drinks, things like that. So with that connection, we had some food in there for the dads. They had some non-alcoholic beverages were down there, and they just got to hang out with us for the day, and it was a really, really cool experience. And again, some of those dads, it was the first time I actually got to have a conversation with them, during BP and just hanging out and just shooting the bull. And I thought it was really, really beneficial to spend that time with them. And again, last year we weren't able to do it, but if things trend hopefully in the right direction this spring, something we plan to do again.
I love that, and I love hearing about that. And I'm just, I'm writing all of this stuff down as just things that are a little bit different than, but that's Mauldin. That's all that I can think of whenever you're saying these things that you guys are doing a little bit different. I'm like, well, that's Mauldin. That's cool. So, let's actually get into some like nuts and bolts of baseball. And again, let me rewind and say all of this is really, really important to be able to set up the culture to your program, and I absolutely think so. But I do want to get into like the nuts and bolts of what you guys are teaching on the field. And again, all of this I think can set up for the way that we are performing on a field. But I did want to get into some different stuff that you guys do in the fall. And a couple of things that you've mentioned so far is I know that you guys have had, this fall may be a little bit different because you guys are on campus twice a week. And so right. Tell us a little bit about how you've gotten creative with that. Are you still being able to see guys a couple of times a week, or they're just only for school? And then, when do you guys start? And then let's talk about, we can just kind of roll from there.
So we have them 7th period in a team sports class, and we're really, really lucky to have that 45, 50 minutes to have them, on the field. And in years past, we've used that time to start our training in the weight room. But this year, I just thought it was with as many freshmen. We have over 30 freshmen trying out this year. The way they get in the class is they get enrolled in seventh period PE, and we pull them into the baseball class. So any given day right now, we have between 20 and 24 kids on the field with us Monday through Thursday. And the way we started it this year, they were all playing in a fall league together. We had some alumni. Justin Dieners with the Braves organization was coaching our varsity guys, and we had a few other guys that are no longer playing, helping them out. But we took the first 2 or 3 weeks to kind of prepare for that fall league. Pitchers were throwing their bullpens, doing their thing. Lots of ground balls. Hitting, doing all that, just trying to get them some reps to be prepared to play in that fall league. But when that was over, which was maybe mid-October, we shut the arms down for a few weeks and really jumped into our offensive philosophy, some simple swing mechanic ideas, and just had stations going on the field and in the cage area. And again, it's difficult to have them 2 days a week and try and feel like you're accomplishing something. But what I did was I took everything we were trying to teach within that 80 minutes in that week and put it into our Google Classroom. So they did have the notes, they did have the ideas, the philosophies, they had hard copies on that. And we encouraged them, around the World Series time to watch as much baseball as they could and see if they can identify any of those ideas offensively that we were talking about and trying to teach to them. So and that led right up to the time when our field was overseeded, which was good because we couldn't be on it anyway. But right now tomorrow we're going to be starting our off-season throwing program and trying to implement daily, a few different basic defensive ideas with cuts and relays. It might be bunt defense. But the main thing is just catching and throwing. We're huge into the idea that if we can handle the baseball, we can throw it accurately, we're going to be able to play against most teams that we play on our schedule. And we try to drill those basic ideas we break it down into grip, with our guys. You have 4-year seniors rolling their eyes because I'm talking to them about gripping the ball across the horseshoe, thumb underneath, space between their hand and the ball, spinning it 12-6, taking their hand north-south, moving their feet, targeting the ball in their pocket. All those simple basic ideas that you would think they've heard probably a million times in their career here, we just start right over. And we're not really changing what we're doing. We're just changing and getting a little bit more creative with the amount of time and what we do and how we're trying to progress throughout the next, month, 5 weeks until Christmas break. And then when we get back from Christmas, January 4th. So we're going to take that class time and just daily try to incorporate and touch on and teach, some basic defensive and offensive philosophies that we have here. And hopefully it'll be something that our freshmen take advantage of and they pay attention and they learn, and try to lock in onto the details that we're big on here.
I really like that a lot, and don't let your seniors roll their eyes. So I think that this is something that I'll never forget. So we're in spring training, and one of the guys is like, "Hey, we should do like the black 4-seam backspin balls, trying to get them to throw the ball better and obviously have more backspin." And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, this is like elementary age stuff. Probably internally rolling my eyes. And right. So it took like 2 hours to be able to mark on all these balls. And so we bring them out there, and they were their play catch balls every day. And some of the guys were like, wow, these are really cool, guys in AAA or AA, and they had never seen that before. So right. I thought that was, one of the more interesting things that I had seen, because I just assumed that they knew. But then, it just goes.
That's funny because I'm looking at electrical tape on my countertop across my office. And every kid in our program last week got a baseball with electrical tape wrapped around it, because that's the exact thing we worked on last week was trying to spin the ball correctly. And
there you go.
Trying to get our freshmen to understand the importance of that 12-6 rotation and hand placement on the ball and release and all those things to get that thing to fly straight and accurately. So that's funny. That makes me feel a whole lot better because they were kind of doing the same thing. Like, seriously, coach, we have electrical tape on the ball. Like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And, some of those guys that were out there really, really locked in, trying to make it spin the right way and focused on what they were trying to accomplish, like, got better in the 30-minute throwing program just by trying to make that thing spin straight.
Oh, no doubt for sure. So another thing that I'm really getting interested in is really locking in on how we can help. We want to grow the team, and we want to have that, have a really good team feel to everything, but we also want to have good players. And I don't want to say that you can't do both, but it does take extra time to make sure that, players have goals. They know what their objectives are. They need feedback. And so it takes extra time to do all of those things rather than having each player do, drill X, Y, or Z and expecting them to get a lot better whenever that may not be their issue. And so how do you help players to take ownership of their career? And that could be, skill wise, but it could also be, hey, I want to do some things on my own. I want to make sure that, this is our team, and different things like that. But, whenever I ask you that question, what are some things that come to mind?
Well, the first idea that we talk to them as a group is, put in the perspective, the idea of if everybody within our program just gets a little bit better today, and we do it again tomorrow, and we do it next month and 6 months from now, think about how good our program is going to be. And then if our program is really good and we're winning a bunch of games, college guys are going to start to take notice, and they're going to come. More of them will come watch us play, which will create more opportunities for guys that do want to go on to play at the next level to have those opportunities. So that's kind of how we frame it. After that, I feel really, really terrible saying this again, but in a normal year, we'll meet with our guys individually at the end of every fall, and we'll sit down with every guy, and we'll try to get a gauge on what they're thinking as far as what they want to try to accomplish playing baseball, whether it's a freshman or it's a junior or a senior. I want to know, do they have aspirations of playing college baseball? And if they say no, totally fine. But I'd like to know what they're trying to get out of playing baseball here at Mauldin. What is their end goal? And the guys that do want to go on and move on and try to play at the next level, we do everything in our power to help them to do that. Again, not this past summer, but the one before that, I guess pre-COVID, we had individual development plans for each of our guys. So each one of them was different, and we tried to sit down with each of our kids at the end of the fall. So the time period between, I guess, end of October and beginning of January, specific things within their game, within their skill set, athletic wise, what we felt they needed to accomplish. And then on the other side of it, they had to tell us what they thought. And a lot of the times they were aligned, but then again, discussions and conversations had to be, talked about that we necessarily didn't see eye to eye. We thought they needed to improve in a certain area, and they didn't quite feel the same way. So we had some healthy conversations, and we all got on the same page of where we wanted to go with this player's career down the road, not only here but at Mauldin. So then after that, we would sit them down at the end, right before we started our regular season schedule. We'd sit them down again and kind of go over where they were. We did some things over the wintertime, later of the fall, to kind of gauge where they were strength wise, some different strength tests, some evaluation methods, simple offensive things, just trying to measure everything we possibly could, offensively, hard hit balls, executions, just the basic simple stuff I'm sure everybody on here does. Pitching wise, we started tracking strike percentage years ago, and the top guys that throw the most strikes pitch for us. And that's interesting. We track the ability to play catch. We have coaches with little index cards marking down how many times a group throws a ball away. And, we have some repercussions if a ball does hit the ground individually. And then at the end of any throwing session, we have, if some days it's 3, 4, 5, they have the entire group, as soon as we're done throwing, has some sort of consequence if 5 baseballs touch the ground within that throwing session. So we try to take all that data and talk to them about their improvement and try to track it as best we can. But again, this year's been so crazy. We just haven't been able to jump in as heavily as we wanted to with that. So the IDPs have been huge for us in those conversations in the fall, right before our season starts, and then at the end of our season, and trying to make sure these guys are headed in the right direction with what they want to accomplish.
Oh, really good. I love that. And again, you'll be back on the field soon and be able to do all of those different things. But again, right. COVID throws a wrench into everybody's plans. But again, thank you for sharing that stuff. So another thing that I think that we can do a better job of is, the game teaches the game, right? But how can we do a better job of teaching the game whenever we're not playing games? Because I think you mentioned you guys played 2 days a week, and in Texas we played 2 days a week. Here in Oklahoma you could play 6 days a week or 5 days a week, and so it's a little bit different in every state. But how do we help them with in-game strategy and game planning and those things? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can help them with that outside of the game.
Right. I just think the discussion, aside from us playing, if you just pay attention, that the game's always teaching you something. It's a complex game, I think, based on some simple ideas. And I think I heard Butch say a couple weeks ago on something, one of the weekly podcasts it seems like he's on, the game has a structure. And I think if we can get our kids to understand that the more they watch, the more they think about, the game, not necessarily playing it, but just paying attention while they're watching the game on TV. They don't have to sit down like I do and watch, a 3-hour Yankee game and flip over to a West Coast game, and just be locked in trying to get as much out of it as they can. But if they sit down for a couple innings and just pay attention to what's going on, they'll get an understanding of what it is that the game is telling them to do. With technology now, Baseball Savant is huge. We've had them do little projects within Baseball Savant of some situational hitting, some trying to find some defensive plays that we've been practicing or we're talking to them about, that they have to kind of go in and find something similar and break down the play and let us know what's going on, what's the situation, what's the score of the game. I think that's been valuable for us as well, just to try to get them to think a little bit differently, try to develop a little bit higher IQ about the game. But again, it just goes back to, the game's going to tell you what it wants you to do, what it needs you to do for you to be successful. And I think that's something as a whole, today's generation, for whatever reason, struggles with just sitting down, going and watching a game or going to find a game. In our area, we have very high level baseball within the Southern Conference, the ASUN, the SEC, the Atlantic. The ACC, the Atlantic Coast. There's high level baseball everywhere. We have high level Division II baseball. We have SMC that's right down the road. Junior college wise, there's high level baseball all around us, and it doesn't take much to get in the car to go watch and pay attention and see if you can learn something.
I love that. Those are really good. And I love the idea of the Baseball Savant, using Baseball Savant. I think it's obviously it's a really cool, a widely used tool, but giving them projects on that would be really, really cool, and having them research that. And so, yeah, that's really, really good. But I know you well enough to know that your practices are fairly fairly organized, just guessing from the amount of organization that you have on social media and getting to know you a little bit better. But talk to us about your practice organization. And you've mentioned base running quite a bit. I want to hit on that here in a bit as well, so keep that in the back of your mind. But just as far as practice organization goes, you've gotten to be a head coach for over a decade, and so I'm sure you've gotten to be able to really narrow down your focus on what's important, when it's important, and things like that. But just how do we organize practice in a way that helps translate to on-field success?
The best thing we did 5 or 6 years ago, we were in a practice working on picks and rundowns or first and thirds or something to that effect. And our pitching coach and I looked at one another, and I think it was almost simultaneous. And we said, when is the last time we had to execute this? And several years ago in a playoff game, we got burned on a steal and stop in a first game. And it was my life's mission that we were never going to get beat on a first and third ever again. So it was your typical, we're going to do first and thirds for 20 minutes. We're going to do bunt defense for this amount of time, this and this and this. And him and I continued to have this conversation over the course of the next few days. And what we essentially decided to do was have our coaching staff rank the things that happen in the game the most. And that's pretty much how I go through and organize practice and prioritize what our kids need to know and what they need to do the most to be prepared to play the game. And I think that significantly changed, number one, the enjoyment of practice for the kids. Not having to work on bunt defense for 25 minutes every day or whatever it was. And they started to have a little bit more fun of actually playing the game during practice. And, it's one of the things I think that I'll never change. We're going to try to field as many types of ground balls as we can. Our outfielders are going to try to field as many fly balls as they can. We're going to make throws from all different parts of the field. We're going to work on catching. We're going to do all those things that at the end of the night, if we can put the ball in play more aggressively than the other team, if we can run the bases better than the other team, if we can, field more ground balls and make more accurate throws and catch more fly balls, at the end of the night, I think we have a pretty good chance to be successful and win. So that's something I'd encourage everyone to try to take a look at your practice plans and see how much time you are dedicating to things that may not be that important. Will they come up? Yeah. Do you have to cover them? Absolutely. But the basic idea of the game is hitting, catching, and throwing. And those are the things I think are most important at the high school level. If we can get a team of kids that can throw strikes, put the ball in play, run the base as well, and catch the ball and throw the ball, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, no doubt. That'll take you to the big leagues. So with your base running stuff, you mentioned that you got in touch with Tyler Gillum a little while back, and I know Tyler's a great person. Obviously, he's from Oklahoma, so it has to be, right. But
that's a good shout out.
Yeah, there you go. But how did that conversation with him change the way that you guys did it? And looking at high school schedules, you are very crunched for time. You don't have unlimited time to be able to do this stuff. So how have you found to implement base running in a useful way that we can steal from you?
It's going to be 10 to 15 minutes every single day after we do our movement prep, regardless of point of the season, preseason, in-season playoffs. If we're inside in the gym, we're going to do some sort of base running every single day. And one of the things that we have planned for this year, we get sometimes a little stagnant with what we're doing. So, we feel like steel breaks and dirtball reads are something we try to hang our hat on here. And, I try to have our coaches hold me accountable. We get 2-3 days in a row where that first 15 minutes is similar, to get on me a little bit and say, hey man, we got to change it up. We got to do something different. So one of the things on the docket for this spring is to make sure we're doing something different every single day with base running. It might be dirtball reads, one day, the next day, it might be, double steel breaks at first and second, our tag rules the next day, our ground ball rules, things like that, our hot reads at third base, split reads. So it's going to be different. And one of the things we do base running wise, and again, it's not groundbreaking, but I think it's really, really good to get them to be comfortable with Dirtball Reads. We put guys at first, second, and third, and we put a coach up there with a catcher, and we just read dirt balls. And, at the beginning, it's messy, it's ugly. It's not essentially what you're looking for, down the road, but it just gets them to me, that's a skill base running wise that they need to see and rep tons of times before they can get comfortable doing it in the game. And one of the ways we do it, what we believe is we try to read the ball as early as we can out of the pitcher's hands. So again, there's many different debates, many different ways to ideas of how to do this. But what we'll do right off the bat, our first time doing it, we'll take our L screen and turn it around and essentially split the mound and home plate. And we'll take a fluorescent string and try to get it as close to release point of our pitcher as we possibly can and string it to home plate about where, and we put a tamp and we string it on the tamp right about the level of where they're going to read the ball into the dirt. And we put a box screen behind that tamp, and we just rep and we coach. We rep and we coach, and we'll do that for about a week. And we just try to get them, again, to see the ball as early as they can out of the pitcher's hand. And we feel like that's an advantage for us. And hopefully, teams that we play have it in the back of their mind that they're going to have to do a good job of blocking and retrieving to be able to have a chance to throw us out. And it kind of goes into, not to go off on a tangent with Dirtball Reads, but I don't know if that's a passion of mine. I really, really like it.
No, go ahead.
We try to put it in their perspective with the kids. There's a few things we need to do on the offensive side, and those trump what the defense has to do. So as a base runner, we need to read the ball. We need to make a decision. Those are the only two things that we as base runners have to do: read the ball down angle, make the decision to go. Now, whereas the defense, they have to block the ball, they have to retrieve the ball efficiently, they have to make an accurate throw, they have to catch the ball, they have to tag. Those are a whole lot more things to do on the defensive side than it is for us to read the ball and make a decision to go or not. So we feel like if we can get that ingrained in our kids' heads, that our decisions are much simpler than what the defense has to execute, it gives them a little bit more confidence to make that decision whether or not to go.
Oh, for sure. I love it. So I'm gonna knock out some quick hitters, and my usual first one is was the COVID question that I asked you earlier. So it was right. How did you change from one to the other? But another one that I really like, and this is something that we always want to find drills that excite the players. And like you mentioned, switching things up ever so often is a great way to be able to do that. You don't want them to get stagnant. And so if we're constantly towing the line between we're trying to make sure we ingrain it, but if they're going on autopilot, then it's not going to be good. And so I am trying to create a drill data bank, in my Evernote file of drills that other coaches know that gets their players excited. So what's one drill that you have that that you guys do, or if you showed up tomorrow and you're like, hey guys, we're doing this drill today, the kids love it. So what's that drill for you, and explain it to us so we can steal it from you and implement it?
I think two defensive, one strictly defensive drill we do. And again, there might be a little controversy within it as far as hitting, but what we like to do is have our outfielders and catchers hit live ground balls to our infielders off the tee. And that's something our guys get really, really competitive at. And kind of two things, like I think it's important for hitters to learn how to control a barrel. And if we can have high school kids that can set a stationary ball on a tee and be able to hit, a one hop line drive through our infielders' shins to create some barrel awareness and direction, I think they're getting better. And then again, on the flip side of that, our infielders are getting better because they're getting some sort of live read. We'll put stopwatches on them when we do that. We'll turn double plays. We'll work into our shifts. We'll do all kinds of things with that drill, and it gets a little bit competitive because our outfielders or catchers are trying to literally, smoke baseballs through the infielders' knees, There'll be a little bit of chirping going back and forth if a younger kid, flinches and doesn't get in front of the ball. Our infielders will chirp back a little bit if there's some 46 hoppers being hit to them. So it gets a little bit competitive in that aspect. And then what we'll do on the flip side with our outfielders, we'll put our outfielders out there and our infielders will come in, and we'll set the tee a little bit higher. And that's where our infielders are working on trying to hit line drives over our outfielders' heads. And, we had some frustration with our outfielders in years past of not getting the spots, of their breaks being inefficient, their angles. So we just got the idea, hey, we do it with our infielders. Let's try it with our outfielders. And again, it's another thing that gets a little bit competitive. Our outfielders keep, taking poor angles, or our infielders are just banging balls over their heads. There's chirping going on, and it gets them in a different, a little bit more competitive environment. So there's that one. And then I've listened to enough of your podcast, JG, to know that everybody's talked about whether it's Tiger BP, it's Revere BP, it's Bengal BP, or whatever it is, the Dead Live BP from Iowa Western and Clemson that they've coined. But that's something our kids really, really enjoy, and get after it. And again, all the stuff I learned over quarantine about the different BPs that Clemson does. Again, they're right down the road. We have several kids there, so I'm a little bit partial to their program, but the base running BP and the different things that they do, I was a little bit disappointed we haven't been able to do yet, which I'm excited to put into practice here. But anytime we can be competitive, I think our kids get after it, whether it's a bunt scrimmage, it's a hit and run scrimmage, things like that. Our kids really kind of jack it up a few notches, and especially if you put something on the line, which, isn't groundbreaking, but for high school guys to be able to talk a little junk to one another and get after one another, I think is invaluable.
One of my questions for you, since you're a head coach, is we take Reaver BP and Tiger BP, and it's basically you have a game-like BP. So it's either dead live, which some people do, or you have regular BP, and then the last one's live. Do you do that? And it's a lot of it is for defensive work, like team defensive work. Do you?
Right.
Are you planning on using that as your BP for the day, or as your defensive work for the day? Because that's probably an hour of practice that you would spend doing that stuff. Depending on the amount of players that you have. So I was just curious because I'm not sure the amount of swings, but we're talking about making things more game-like. And so I've always been curious on, do people hit before this? Do they have guys hitting off to the side? Or just kind of work with me through what you guys would be doing to make sure players get reps, but they're seeing a ton of game-like reps, which is also a good thing, which is an even better thing.
So essentially how we would structure that, we try to do, we veered away from your normal feel-good BP to something game-like at the end of every practice. But if we were to do Maverick BP, we would do some early work first defensively. So our JV would hit in the cage while our varsity is doing a quick 15, 20 minute early defensive period. Just trying to work some fundamentals, get them locked into whatever focus that is for the day. Defensively, if we were doing some team defense, and then they would flip. So our JVs would come out for their defensive work while our varsity would go into the cage, and knock out their early work. So they're getting their skill work early after we would throw, and then whatever other focus we would have team defense wise or team offense wise, whether it's bunts that day, it's cuts, stands, relays, top of priority, whatever it is, they're getting their individual early work done first, both in the cage and defensively, and then we'd end the day with Maverick BP, and that's where they're just going to play. There's days where they chart touches and web gems and plays made, things like that. We work on our shifts from the infield standpoint, from the outfield standpoint, different alignments, things like that, whether it's shallow if they're playing no doubles. So they're trying to get as many game-like reps as possible. One thing we do also within our practice plan is, depending on the round, we try to get them to understand angles towards a base. So this round, everything might be working through third base. The next round, everything might be working through the plate, whether it's a ground ball, it's a fly ball. It's a do or die at the plate. We're really trying to script what everybody's doing defensively, so it just doesn't turn into a shag session. We want them to understand every rep they take should have a purpose, and they're getting something out of it essentially.
I love that. And again, thank you. It's one thing to hear it on a podcast, and then it's another thing completely to try and find time to implement it and how you're going to do it, what you're going to do, what it looks like, how you're going to set it up, how you're going to sell it with the kids. And so I love hearing, how people steal things, because the hard part for me is how do I steal it and make it, work with the constraints that I have, the constraints, the resources, the kids, the amount of players and things like that. So that's always helpful to hear that too.
And it's something with anything, it evolves into your own. Like you take something you've heard for somebody else and you think it's going to be great for your program and for your kids. And the first time you do it, you instantly start getting ideas of how to change it and tailor it to what and who you have. Like we don't do exactly what Clemson does or Iowa Western or whatever. It's become our own. And over time, the more times you do it, I'm sure we'll go out there in February, and the first time we do it, we'll sit there and say, okay, maybe we can't do that with this group right off the bat. But what we found too, with anything like that, communication on the front end, I think, is most important. And making sure the kids are comfortable and starting slow and stopping right in the middle if you have to, just to kind of get everybody back on the same page, because it is a fast moving, up tempo drill that freshmen especially are going to be sitting there going, what in the world? What does he mean dead? Like, what does he mean live? No matter how many times you tell them. So I think the communication aspect, of everything on the front end, is the biggest piece, and just taking it slow, and getting them to understand exactly what you want is the most important piece of that.
I love it. Thank you for that. So last but not least, if you were going to buy a book for every one of our listeners, I gave you the budget to be able to do that. What would you buy for them?
I'm going to go to, I think the first book I ever read as a coach at 23 years old. Coach Waddle made me read it. And it wasn't really that difficult because it was by a Yankee. I would say Joe Torre's Ground Rules for Winners. It's kind of a throwback. Obviously, right now it's a little dated, but I think it's the ideal book of how to go step by step with becoming a leader. Making sure people are doing the things that you're expecting and wanting them to do. How to deal with some adversity, setbacks, how to handle success. Again, it's the first book I ever read as a coach, and it's something I reference back to quite a bit. So Joe Torre's Ground Rules for Winners, I think, is really, really good.
Well, I love that. And let me be the first to say thank you again for coming on the show and just sharing so much practical advice that coaches from all levels can definitely resonate with and take and steal from you. But I'm going to open up the mic for you. And again, thank you Jim, for coming on the show and sharing so much. But is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners before you go?
No, I just want to say thank you to you for giving me the opportunity to share about what we do here at Mauldin and brag on our kids. Thanks for what you do for the game. It's really, really good. I enjoy every week listening to your episodes. And again, just for whatever reason, if any of our coaches are listening or any of our kids fumble into this, I just want to say thank you to them for the time and dedication and commitment to our program that they do every single day.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, which could include Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or YouTube. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it on social media to help get the word out. Once again, thank you for joining us.